Last night, President Trump plunged the country into chaos without a shred of warning.
New York Senator Chuck Schumer is reacting to the Trump administration's sweeping pause on federal loans and grants that starts at 5 p.m. today. It's a move that has sent shockwaves across the country. In a memo issued by the acting director of the Office of Management and Budget, Matthew Veith, he said, quote, "This temporary pause will provide the administration time to review agency programs consistent with the law and the president's priorities." The response has been fast and furious, with New York Attorney General Letitia James posting this statement on X, quote, "My office will be taking imminent legal action against this administration's unconstitutional pause on federal funding." And imminent it is because she is set to take the stage for a press conference this afternoon. Here to break it all down and explain how this could affect Americans is the Hill's White House reporter, Brett Samuels. Brett, it's good to see you. Thanks for being with us. Let's start with Chuck Schumer there at this press conference. Let's hear a little bit more from him.
In an instant, Donald Trump has shut off billions, perhaps trillions of dollars that directly support states, cities, towns, schools, hospitals, small businesses, and most of all, American families. This is a dagger at the heart of the average American family in red states, in blue states, in cities, in suburbs, in rural areas.
Some strong words there from Schumer. Are we going to keep seeing Democrats go on the attack like this?
I think so, Zach. I think this is a case we've seen, Democrats kind of struggle to keep up in the first week of the Trump administration with all the new policy directives and things causing outrage. But this does seem to be something, this funding pause, that has caused a lot of panic among nonprofits, among universities, among different groups that receive federal assistance. It's caused some confusion among everyday Americans about what this means for organizations they rely on and programs they rely on. So certainly I'd expect to see Democrats really hammer home this point in the days to come and really pin this on Trump.
Well, let's sort out some of that confusion a little bit more. The White House is taking a lot of questions on it this afternoon about this freeze announcement. Break down for us exactly what does this cover? The White House is now saying this is not blanket across the board. What exactly should Americans expect once this 5 p.m. deadline comes and goes?
Yeah, so I think the top line thing to sort of understand that the White House has been very adamant about, that this memo laid out, is a few programs that are not affected by this pause: Medicare, Social Security, SNAP benefits for nutritional assistance program. Basically, any program that provides direct benefits, direct assistance to Americans, the White House has said that should not be affected by this pause. What they're focused on is sort of other government spending that might be put toward policy programs, which the White House is trying to sort of align with their own priorities. That means they want to cut off funding for anything about DEI programs, diversity programs, climate programs. They mentioned, for example, they pulled out of the World Health Organization, making sure no money is going toward the World Health Organization and its efforts. So those are sort of the top lines of what we know as far as what is affected and what imminently is not going to be affected.
Well, I'm sure we'll see lots of legal action on this in the weeks to come. We've now got a lawsuit from a group of nonprofits. We've got those Democratic attorney generals expected to file suit today. So a lot more to come on that. But let's shift gears to something that Democrats probably wish they could have sued over, and that is Trump's mass pardons of these January 6th defendants. At a press conference today, Washington Senator Patty Murray announced that she would be introducing a resolution to condemn those January 6th pardons. Let's take a listen.
That resolution, so you know, very simply reads in its entirety: resolved that the Senate disapproves of any pardons for individuals who were found guilty of assaulting Capitol Police officers.
Trump has been getting a lot of backlash for these pardons, but given the fact that the president has this pardon authority, do you think that this resolution is anything more than symbolic?
I think it is very much just kind of a messaging effort, especially from Democrats. This is something that, ever since that attack on the Capitol happened about 4 years ago, Democrats have really banged the drum on this, called it an affront to democracy, called it a terrible, dark day. They have really tried to highlight this idea that Trump is sympathetic toward a lot of these folks who were charged or arrested in connection with that attack. But at the end of the day, even though Trump promised on the campaign trail that he was going to pardon a lot of these people, voters still voted for him anyway and put him in the White House. So I do think it's something for Democrats to sort of hang their head on as a messaging exercise, but not sure what kind of political impact it will really have.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about some of the other actions that Trump has been up to. He has just signed 4 new executive orders related to the military. One of them will gut DEI programs. Another one has to do with transgender members who serve in the military. Talk to us more about what these executive orders are and how do they have the potential to change the Defense Department?
Yes, this is another thing that Trump, we heard him talk a lot about on the campaign trail when he nominated Pete Hegseth to be his defense secretary. There was a lot of talk about, removing quote unquote wokeness from the military, getting rid of DEI programs, as you said. So that was one order, was to sort of unwind any programs that emphasize diversity or equity and are not sort of merit-based. Another you mentioned sort of sets the table for Trump to reinstitute a ban on transgender troops serving in the military, something that then President Biden undid on his own time to allow them to serve again. He also reinstated military members who were kicked out of the service for refusing to take the COVID-19 vaccine, had become a big culture war fight, and gave them back pay. So that was another campaign promise that he's fulfilling. But, certainly taken together, and one more we should note is he signed this order talking about, creating an iron dome over America. So something akin to what exists in Israel, this missile defense system. Sort of unclear still how exactly that would work, whether it'd be funded, how it'd be built. But taken together, just I think reflects sort of the sweeping nature with how Trump is trying to quickly remake the military and the Pentagon.
On that order about the transgender members in the military, as you mentioned, the transgender members in the military have been able to serve. So what happens next for them now that this executive order is going into effect?
Yeah, certainly this is something we saw happen, 8 years ago at this point with Trump's first term when he signed this ban, where I'm sure there'll be legal action certainly to try and block this. But, in the meantime, this is the Trump White House saying that over a period of time, the military can institute this policy to essentially block transgender troops from serving in the military. Certainly they laid out the reasons suggesting that they were not equipped to serve in the military. So I'm sure we'll see some legal action, but in the meantime, that process will get underway to sort of impose this ban blocking those folks from serving.
Let's shift gears. Trump's been in office now about a week, and there's already been quite a lot of firings. We had the other day those firings of all the inspector generals, and now there have been 3 Democrats who have been fired from a federal intelligence and privacy oversight board. Talk to us a little bit more about what this board does, and what do you make of all these firings from this new administration?
Yeah, I think these firings on this privacy oversight board are, again, reflective of how Trump is coming in and cleaning house, essentially. We've seen firings of inspectors general, we've seen firings of DOJ employees, we've seen firings of this privacy oversight board. He's trying to force out folks at the National Labor Review Board. So really it's sort of a signal, I think, that nowhere is safe from Trump trying to weed out folks who are appointed by Democrats who don't share Trump's worldview. You could connect this back to the OMB pause even. Just a way I think Trump is coming into office and he's quickly trying to sort of break down the government and then build it back up in sort of his own mold, his own image. So I think it's sort of a message, this Privacy Review Board, that any sort of advisory commission, any sort of decision-making body that isn't aligned with Trump is going to be under the microscope.
Meanwhile, as all this is happening, his new nominees have been going through the confirmation process. It's been a busy week on Capitol Hill. We saw Scott Bessent confirmed for Treasury Secretary on Monday. We've now have hearings scheduled for later in the week on RFK Jr., Kash Patel, Tulsi Gabbard. I want to talk a little bit specifically on Gabbard and how her path has been narrowing. Talk to us about what do you think her chances are at this point, and what does she need to do as she heads into this hearing?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say Tulsi Gabbard probably faces the toughest road to confirmation of any of the folks who are left on the docket for Trump's nominees. You mentioned her path seems to be narrowing in the Senate Intelligence Committee, where she'll have her hearing. It's a 9-8 party split, so she can't really afford any GOP defections. Susan Collins of Maine is on that committee. She has raised some concerns about Gabbard and her views on foreign surveillance, foreign intelligence surveillance program that is authorized by the government. Obviously, she's made some controversial comments about the war in Ukraine, about the Assad regime in Syria, so those will be top of mind certainly. But Tulsi Gabbard's really walking a very narrow tightrope here just to be able to get out of the Senate Intelligence Committee, and then she'd have to get passed on the full Senate floor, where she can only afford 3 GOP defections.
Well, we may already only be a week into this new administration, but a lot going on. The Hill's Brett Samuels, thanks for being on top of it all. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Zach.
A few million Social Security recipients may have to wait longer to receive an increase in their payments. The Social Security Administration says that the snafu boils down to timing, money, and math. Before leaving office, former President Biden signed into law a provision that provides back payments to nearly 2 million Americans who should have received one lump sum payment to make up for a shortfall back in 2024. But in a recent notification to recipients, the agency said that the law didn't provide funds to support executing it, and that now 3 million people could be impacted. The law is retroactive, so the agency has to consider both past and future benefits. Officials say that the process could take up to a year. Shots rang out Monday night along the Texas-Mexico border. The Border Patrol says that several agents were fired at by suspected cartel members on the Mexican side, and that the agents returned fire. News Nation's Jorge Ventura is at the border with the details.
Tense moments unfolded at the southern border in Fronton, Texas, here in the Rio Grande Valley, an area notorious for cartel activity and human smuggling. On Monday, around 1:29 p.m., shots were fired from the Mexican side towards Border Patrol agents. The agents took cover, returned fire, and called for backup. This is drone footage from Texas DPS showing suspected cartel members fleeing after firing shots at agents. No one was injured on either side. DHA sources telling News Nation that the cartel members were attempting to smuggle a group across the river, but none of them made it onto U.S. soil. News Nation was the only outlet on the scene as multiple agencies joined Border Patrol agents in the investigation. Drones were deployed for surveillance, and an elite border tac unit armed and ready arrived to secure the area.
Our agents reported shots being fired towards their direction alongside the border. The shots were coming in from Mexico, and they did return fire. They took cover, and they immediately requested backup. Backup was rendered, and subsequently we've been working with our local and state partners.
Border Patrol telling News Nation no agents were injured. The investigation is still ongoing, and agents are working closely with Mexican authorities at this time. No arrests have been made. Mexican authorities in Tamaulipas have also issued a warning to residents about criminal groups using explosives. Citizens are advised not to touch or move them. Tamaulipas, just across the border from where we are in the Rio Grande Valley, remains a hotspot for cartel violence. This comes as the U.S. State Department has elevated its travel advisory for Tamaulipas to level 4, do not travel, citing crime, kidnappings, gunfights, and explosives in the region. Border Patrol officials say incidents like these in Fronton highlight the daily dangers Border Patrol agents face every day. And whether part of a specialty unit or a routine patrol, agents head out every shift not knowing the dangers they could encounter at the U.S.-Mexico southern border. This also comes as Texas Governor Greg Abbott has deployed 400 additional Texas National Guard troops to the McAllen area here in the Rio Grande Valley to support Border Patrol agents on the ground. Governor Abbott is deploying these troops as part of the Texas Tactical Border Force, a unit that he first launched back in 2023. Troops from this unit will be deployed to key hotspots along the Texas-Mexico border. The troops arriving from Fort Worth and Houston with military transport aircraft, including C-130s and Chinook helicopters, all dispatched to this region here. The Texas Tactical Border Force is part of the state's Operation Lone Star Border Security Initiative. Border Patrol agents in the Rio Grande Valley say they welcome the added manpower and support.
Purely serving as a security role. What type of security? That means security along our border, securing open areas and securing any type of infrastructure, along with any type of tools that will be used to repair the wall.
Border Patrol officials telling News Nation with these additional troops on the ground here in the Rio Grande Valley, that frees up Border Patrol agents to be focused on border security and apprehending individuals trying to enter the country illegally.
Thanks to News Nation's Jorge Ventura for that report. Mass deportations are continuing across the United States. Immigration and Customs Enforcement reports that a whopping 3,500 arrests have happened in the first week of the Trump administration. Let's take a look. 2 planes carrying deported Colombians arrived in the Colombian capital on Tuesday morning. It comes just days after the Colombian government pushed back against the Trump administration's deportation efforts. Colombia said that they would refuse to accept repatriation flights of Colombian nationals. That refusal prompted President Trump to say in a post on social media that he would place a 25% tariff and a travel ban on the Latin American country. The Colombian president then vowed to retaliate, but later agreed to accept flights. Meantime, the U.S. Embassy in Colombia says that it has canceled all appointments with people seeking a visa to enter into the U.S. Meanwhile, the Department of Homeland Security is focusing its deportation efforts on so-called sanctuary cities. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem was in New York City ahead of several raids across major cities. That includes Chicago, Los Angeles, and Atlanta. Altogether, ICE has reported nearly 1,200 arrests yesterday alone. Noem posted a video on X showing some of those arrests and adding, quote, "Criminal alien with kidnapping, assault, and burglary charges is now in custody. Dirtbags like this will continue to be removed from our streets," close quote. Congress is also gearing up to take on sanctuary cities. News Nation's Alex Capriello is in Chicago with what the House Oversight Committee is planning and how the leaders of these cities are responding.
Hey there, Zach. Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson says he's not backing down to President Donald Trump or his immigration policies, despite the threat of having to testify in front of Congress next month. His legal counsel currently taking a look at the letter that was delivered to him late last night to see if it is an actual mandate to appear in front of Congress or simply just an invitation. The mayor has been one of the more outspoken critics of the Trump administration and the president's plans for mass deportation of illegal immigrants. This comes even after the acting attorney general put sanctuary cities on notice last week, saying the mayors would be investigated and prosecuted if they stood in the way of federal operations. Earlier today, I asked the mayor how his local government has been preparing for this possibility and about the federal presence in Chicago, including border czar Tom Homan here in the city conducting ICE raids.
What's clear from this administration is that they do not have the full pulse or the breadth of what people in America are calling for. And, you know, he has made it no secret that he wants to dismantle the education department. And he's made it very clear that he is not willing to, uphold the very sensibilities of our democracy to make sure that we're protecting the civil rights of individuals.
There are 11 sanctuary states across the United States, but there are 4 cities in particular the Committee of Oversight and Government Reform is honing in on. In letters penned to the city mayors, James Comer, the chair of the committee, writes, quote, "Sanctuary jurisdictions and their misguided and obstructionist policies hinder the ability of federal law enforcement officers to effectuate safe arrests and remove dangerous criminals from American communities, making Americans less safe." 4 cities, however, stand out in their abject failure to comply with federal law: Chicago, New York City, Denver, and Boston. Citizens of all 4 cities have suffered due to sanctuary policies. If Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson is forced to testify in front of Congress, that'll be next month, Tuesday, February 11th. Zach.
Thanks to Alex Capriello for that report. That's today's Daily Debrief. I'm Zach Schonfeld. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the Hill's YouTube channel. And come back here soon for the intersection between politics and policy.